Welcome to Vidarbh Literary Festival, arguably India's first non-fiction literary festival and the largest in central India. We function on lines similar to other established literary festivals across the country, but with a difference that we have purely non-fiction authors in action here in Nagpur. Each year we have a central theme to the festival. This year's theme is non-fiction for inclusion. In line with this theme, we have various authors and topics that instill these values in us. Inclusion, to be included, to be provided equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded. Inclusion of minorities, marginalized sections of society, inclusion of the differently abled, inclusion of the privileged too. Willingness to accept books of each section included in this festival. The receptiveness of readers of Maja Nagpur to lend a ear to every marvelous author included. Readers are assured to be enthralled with a fantastic array of most intriguing non-fiction books wound so seamlessly in astounding narratives by an inclusive lineup of incredible authors. I now request our moderator, Dr. Neeta Sapre, to usher the author for this session, Ms. Damayanti Datta, to the podium. The book in focus, Sugar, the Silent Killer. Oh my God, I can never survive without sugar. The book delves into the use, overuse, and bend of us Indians towards sugar from prehistoric times till date. A well-researched book that also accounts for the dangers caused by this white poison. Author of this revelation, which most of the sweet-tooth readers are unwilling to accept, Miss Damayanti Datta, writer, editor, journalist, and research scholar. Ms. Damayanti Datta seeks to demystify the way India eats, the preeminence of refined sugar in our diet, what it does to us, and what we can do to mitigate its malign influence. Damayanti Datta has spanned disciplines and professions, having worked in the classroom, the boardroom, and the newsroom. She has traveled widely and reported from places as diverse as hospital wards, courthouses, science labs, police stations, heritage landscapes, and tribal homes. Having interviewed global influencers as well as the invisible people inhabiting hidden depths of obscure villages of India, Ms. Datta specializes in storytelling that is rooted in research. She is also Deputy Editor at India Today. Please welcome Ms. Damayanti Datta. Moderator in focus for this intriguing book, Dr. Neeta Sapre, consultant obstetrician and gynecologist, Praja Clinic and Sonography Center, Nagpur. She has completed her graduation and post-graduation from Government Medical College, Nagpur. She has a clinical experience of 15 years and is an active member of Nagpur Gynecology Society and Indian Menopause Society. She has been a faculty at various state and national conferences. Ms. Dr. Neeta Sapre has special interest in ultrasound and infertility. Her extracurricular interests include reading non-fiction books. Please welcome Dr. Neeta Sapre.
Very good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome, Damayanti.
Thank you.
Her sugar book comes at an appropriate time when the world just celebrated 100 years of discovery of insulin, and at a time when the incidence of diabetes is rising exponentially across the globe, and India is not an exception. Damayanti, it has been an impressive career graph throughout, from being outstanding in academics to earning fellowships from the most coveted institutes of the world. In fact, calling you highly learned would be an understatement. But then how was this shift from academics to journalism and then to writing? And how do you perceive this change for yourself?
Thank you for your question. I actually like it because if I hadn't worked in so many different fields, I wouldn't have met so many different types of people from different walks of life, doing different things. And I think it's the variety which has always made me happy. And this variety has also enriched my life. You know, I wanted to add something to that question. I went to study in the UK at a very impressionable age, early 20s. And there, at both Oxford and Cambridge, this is what I saw, that lines do not exist. You can do a PhD, but then I had lots of friends who had joined bureaucracy. I have a very good friend who worked with Stephen Hawking and is now the editor of a science journal there. Then I have friends who became entrepreneurs. So those very strict lines that if you do a PhD, you have to be an academic.
It was in history, right?
Yes, and that seems to be a very, our way of looking at things. It wasn't there. So I learned how to do research, and then whatever I did research. So I joined a whole lot of things. Did a whole lot of things, but...
you were a Corpcom chief?
Yes. That's because the Anandabazar group of publication at that time, they had bought Star, 72% stake, and they needed somebody who could speak for the whole house. Because they had a lot of products, publications, Telegraph thought that they're at the center of the universe. Anandabazar Patrika thought that way. Business World thought that way. So nobody actually spoke for the house, and journalists only listened to journalists. So I was offered this post, and I took it up and worked for 3 years, and I got bored. So went back to journalism again, India Today.
India Today. And even Outlook Express.
Outlook, that was absolutely at the end as a consulting editor while I was
and now to writing. So is that a change in yourself?
No, not really. You know, when I was with India Today, I had done a story. India Today was doing a campaign to save the Taj Mahal, the man-made dangers rising around the Taj Mahal. So I had done a series of stories there. I had stayed there for some months. The Supreme Court was very concerned. So after I decided to take a break just before the COVID from journalism. I approached INTAC. They have a research scholarship. INTAC is the most eminent heritage conservation body in the country. So they gave me a research scholarship to work. I'm again working on the communities which built the Taj Mahal.
Great.
Tajganj.
I heard investigative journalism. That sounds really interesting. So was it your choice or an opportunity? Or was it subject-oriented?
See, investigative journalism is a word that has now been taken over by television, meaning
Yes, we see that.
sting operation. But investigative journalism is essentially a magazine journalism where you have the wherewithal, you have facts, you have numbers, and then you have people. And you link all these together like a detective solving a puzzle. And magazine writing is particularly suitable. At that time, India Today had a huge interest in such stories, and they could give us, like 2,500 words, 3,000 words, 5,000 words, write a story, go in depth, write whatever. I had come to Vidarbha once in 2011, actually, to do an investigative story on the widows of the farmers who had committed suicide.
Okay.
So that meant a lot of field work. That meant finding out numbers, going through parliamentary documents, what the politicians were talking about. Putting all these together is essentially magazine writing, which seems to be a lost art now.
So that is different from the sting operations that we see and in the
sting
magazine.
operation, I'm not putting it down. It is definitely an important part of journalism, but I think investigative journalism is very much a magazine
Right.
approach to journalism.
So they say you need free mind, space, and solitude for writing. And when you get this all, the writers are just unstoppable. So then how do you manage your time schedule? Because I can see that you are working for heritage conservation. I'm sure there must be some other interests as well.
Yes, I'm deeply into furniture painting now.
Great.
But, if you have worked for 23 years in the media, you don't get solitude. Solitude is one thing you will not be given. And you get used to it. That's the training.
And still you write.
You have to write because deadlines are very tight.
Okay.
So what happened to me in the end is that, that's why I got so tired of media, is that I started staying up at night after night, and finishing my stories. And then I really got fed up and quit.
Okay. So coming to your book, Sugar, the Silent Killer. Trust me, I haven't eaten anything sweet since the time I have read that book. Such is the influence of your writing. So why did you investigate sugar? A single component you have pinpointed, whereas we eat so many tangled combinations of nutrients in the food. Then why did you isolate sugar?
See, at that time, in 2018, I did a cover story for India Today on a similar topic, on sugar. At that time, two things were happening. One is AIMS in Delhi had done a huge study of the country after 25 years, where they had found Dr. Nikhil Tandon, who's the head of that department. So he called me and he shared his research, their research with me, showing that diabetes had just zoomed in the last 25 years in India, and how it has happened. So that research was with me. And secondly, at that time, the Lancet, the peer-reviewed journal, had formed a committee, Eat Lancet, with the top nutritionists and some of the top doctors of the world. And they had come out with this report saying, Eat Lancet report, saying that by 2050, the world will have 10 billion people. And the planet does not have enough food to sustain 10 billion people unless we put things right. And in that context, they had really criticized India and its use of sugar. So all those things came together.
It's worldwide, the use of sugar.
No, we actually top the world in sugar consumption. If you take both traditional sugar and modern sugar, we top the world. And we also have largest obesity, largest diabetes, largest heart attack in the world.
So your research was already there?
No, for 3,000 words worth of research, which didn't touch upon prehistory, history, and I needed to really go in depth to understand the subject. When Rupa Publishers approached me to write, they had read that story. So I very gratefully wrote during COVID. So this is what I was doing.
This story of sugar, as you rightly mentioned in your book, The Republic of Sugar, has always been there with doctors telling the patients to stay away from it.
Right.
But everybody knows doctors' advice falls on deaf ears. However, when it comes from a non-physician like you, people identify themselves with you more easily and are more compliant in listening. Is that true? Or will you blame the medical fraternity for not creating enough awareness regarding this toxic substance? Or is it because the sugar itself is extremely addictive? What do you think?
I hope people will listen to somebody like me because I wrote it for people like me who used to eat unhealthy foods at any time, raid the fridge in the middle of the night. So I'm sure there are lots of people who need some sort of, nudge to even think deeply about this one item. We eat lots of things and in an unhealthy manner. And I had a lot of stress in my life because of the profession I have been in. So I'm sure a lot of people would relate to me. But doctors, I don't know why doctors don't tell us enough. They say don't smoke, but they don't say don't eat sugar. So
Very
I
true.
asked a friend of mine who's a doctor, and he told me that because you guys never ask. So I don't know, how it works. It could be that doctors have, I take the example of my father. He was asked by a cardiologist very early on in his life not to have sugar, not to have fat, not to have carbohydrate, not to have anything.
I will just tell you, sorry to interrupt, that we have cardiologists I can see in the audience and the physician as well.
But they're modern cardiologists. I'm talking about my father's time when there was a blanket ban on anything, and my father was had a great will, I think. So I never saw him eating anything but, extremely healthy food. He lived to be 84, but I felt very sad for him because his quality of life was so tough. And I think people
Eating
fear
healthy.
going to doctors would mean this, that your life would go on would be so straitjacketed that you wouldn't, there won't be much pleasure in living. So I thought, why not write a book where people can sort out for themselves what they should eat. And if they find there are symptoms which are not healthy, they can approach doctors and then maybe follow.
Right. But there have been efforts in the past, just like you, by some authors and scientists regarding the ill effects of refined sugar. But why do you think their message was drowned?
There's a very interesting story, you know about it. I discussed
Please,
it with
please
you.
tell the audience.
There was a professor, John Yudkin, in the United Kingdom. He wrote a book. He actually set up the nutrition department in King's College, London. He wrote a book in 1972, Pure, White and Deadly. It was all about how dangerous sugar is. So stay away from carbohydrates and sugar. But at that time, the US presidents were getting a lot of heart attacks, and Roosevelt particularly died of a heart attack, and a lot of commissions, inquiry commissions were set up. And so there was this American doctor, Dr. Ansel Keys. He even came on Time magazine cover. He said, no, it's not carbohydrate, it's not sugar, it's fat. Fat is the villain. So he managed to convince the most of the prime medical institutions in America, in Europe, that it is fat. So the guidelines were shaped accordingly. The US dietary guidelines, don't have fat, don't have fat, don't have fat, cut down on fat, you can have sugar. Sugar was not even in conversation. And Yudkin was the only person who was going on and on and on. And so Dr. Keys and his associates completely sidelined Yudkin. He nearly lost his job. Anyway, he retained his job, but completely sidelined. He died heartbroken, and his book had no meaning. It's only now, since in the last 5-6 years, that a lot of scientists from Harvard, from Yale, from California, University of California, the World Heart Federation, they're coming forward and they're recognizing Yudkin's work as terribly important. And even in 1972, what he said made a lot of sense. And research has come out showing that the sugar industry was paying scientists to downgrade the results of the impact of sugar on human health. So that research is also out now. So all these things have come together, and the US dietary decisions are being revised. They have been revised. Now, how much sugar you can have has come down. Fat. In fact, I remember Dr. Naresh Trehan told me that you can go ahead and have some ghee, because although it's saturated fat, ghee is actually good for our health. At least 2 tablespoons or teaspoons a day. And I felt so sad for my father because he never had food. I mean, I never had ghee for as long as I lived.
So that Professor Dr. John Yudkin, his work was actually hidden.
Yes, completely sidelined, and it was apparently called a mountain of nonsense.
Oh my God.
So this scientist versus scientist politics completely took away the public health message that needed to come to us, the whole world. We had an obesity epidemic. We continued with heart attack epidemic, dementia, Alzheimer's, diabetes. Everything is at the end linked to sugar.
I agree, because excess cholesterol and excess oil leads to heart attack and stroke. Everybody knows this, and this takes the center stage.
Exactly.
Whereas refined sugar, which leads to battery of grave diseases, takes a back seat.
Right. Absolutely.
So because we know now that it is because of this politics in US and UK, which
Scientists,
has
one lobby versus another lobby, which is very common. I mean, I'm sure doctors know and scientists would know. This is common in every country, in every institution, but they were very powerful, so they had their way.
True. But I'm happy that now
yes,
you
it is changing.
Have come up with this. Though it is easy to blame it on our genes for getting diabetes, diseases are a complex interaction between our genes and our culture. Right. And sweet is something intricately intertwined with our culture. If we don't serve our guests with sweet, we are not good hosts.
Absolutely.
So in that case, this idea of going away from this culture is quite bold. So does it call for a fundamental change in our thinking about the beneficial and harmful diets?
I would hope so. I have tried some in my own life. My mother is slightly diabetic. I mean, it's not genetic. It came after age 80, so it is to do with old age. The thing is, for instance, substituting sugar with raisin. Raisin is good for health. So like that, I've more seeds, more nuts, more fruits, instead of... See, the thing is, doctors would know there are carbohydrates. All carbohydrates finally become sugar in the body, glucose. So there are some carbohydrates, when you consume them, your sugar rises slowly and it falls slowly over time. Those are good carbs. Then there are carbohydrates, which if you consume them, your sugar goes up like this, spikes up and crashes. Those are terrible, and they damage your body and all your systems, and they finally lead to all the difficult chronic diseases of the day. So we have these measurements,
glycemic
index, which measure how much sugar you can have. I mean, how your food is impacting your blood sugar within 2 hours of having food. then that is not enough because it doesn't take the quality and quantity of food. So we have glycemic load. So these are the measurements of measuring the glucose in your body. But the problem, as you said, remains because, you know, say carrots, raw carrots, the glycemic index is very low. But cooked carrots, the glycemic index is very high. So then doctors would need to tell you that as well. That makes life very complicated.
I know.
Watermelon,
True.
if you, watermelon has very high glycemic index, but then we don't eat so much watermelon, no? We eat just a little. And so we get 2 grams of, say, sugar in that much watermelon. So that becomes healthy. So this is a very complex thing, and sugar itself is as complex as we are. So
Yes, and our culture basically is
Yes.
responsible for this. I was intrigued to read exploitation of bees as honey, whereas honey has already formed a part of our rituals. So people think that honey can be substituted for sugar. But then the whole thing revolves around whether we need to consume sweets at all, whether we need sugar, whether we need that sweet taste.
I don't know if you know about it, but animals can't taste sugar.
I didn't know. Maybe.
Dinosaurs couldn't taste sugar. That's why birds can't. So tigers can't. So like that. So humans are unique in the sense they can taste sugar. They have those genes in their taste buds which allow them to taste sugar. And it is believed now that it is actually the excessive consumption of sugar millions of years ago during human evolution that gave us our bigger brains, that allowed us to become different, to develop culture, civilization, and become humans. So the paradox is our bodies are ancient. Our brains are as old as, you know, millions of years ago when the first humans, Homo sapiens, developed. But we now live in a modern age, a space age. So we have the brain of Stone Age, and we live in the space age where sugar is in everything in our food basket. There are 300 names under which sugar parade in the food labels. You can't even make out. You can see added sugar, okay, that much you can understand. There are 300 names under which sugar hides in our food basket, food chain. You can't even make out what you're eating. But your brain is that ancient brain when the world didn't have too much sugar, just wasn't there. It wasn't abundant at all. The earliest fossils find figs as sources of sugar in tooth crevices of fossils. That's why your brain is geared to tell you, if there's sugar, go, have it. So there are pleasure hotspots in your brain which light up. Your brain floods your body with dopamine, feel-good hormones. At the taste, the sound, the smell, the texture, the crunch of sugary things. So it is very difficult for us to fight that because our brains don't understand. And we see sugar, sweet, anything. Survival of the fittest has worked like this through evolution, but at this time, millions of years later, we have so much sugar in our diet. If we listen to our brains without understanding why our brain is saying this, pushing us towards that, we put our body in danger. So it's basically the problem of the Stone Age brain, Stone Age body in a space age time.
So our
we are
brain
living
is tricked by
tricks
the
us.
sugar.
Yes. It
And-
becomes happy at the sight of sugar.
So even if, so I think people should understand that sugar, jaggery,
Yes,
honey, everything leads to high levels of sugar, though the
Absolutely.
glycemic index can vary.
Honey, the only good thing is that it has some antioxidants, minerals, vitamins and all that. But then the way honey is manufactured mostly, many reports have come out that a lot of antibiotics are used in the way bees are kept in aviaries. So beware of honey.
So then anything against nature.
Anything against nature. That is one lesson I learned
So
while doing this
eating
book.
against nature is bad.
I mean, would you agree if I say that sugar is against nature? What would you say?
What does the house say?
You wouldn't? Why?
Because it has been a part and parcel of life for so many millions of
Right.
and it is only excess use of sugar which is causing a problem. In moderation, it will not cause.
That is partly correct, but you don't find sugar in nature in the form in which we consume sugar. India actually discovered sugar 5,000 years ago in the crystalline granulated form. Before that, sugar was not found in, I mean, even now, you don't find sugar in trees. So many doctors are now saying, but that's good carbohydrate, slowly rising sugar. That's glucose. I'm saying the sugar that we consume, you buy in
Actually,
the market.
the refined sugar in the crystallized
Crystalline
refined
granulated sugar is not natural. We have created it.
form. Correct.
Exactly. No, I mean. No, I'm saying 5,000 years ago there was no refined sugar, no? Refined polished sugar came only in the 20th century, early 20th century. But that granulated sugar is processing, a sort of processing of sugar cane that our country was smart enough to do. But even then, I mean, that's what a lot of doctors are saying, that, see, if you study the human body, and look at our fingers, they're like apes. We are good to hold branches. Look at our alimentary canal, the digestive system, it's very long. Animals who consume meat and flesh more, they have bags where you don't keep your foods do not stay in their stomach for too long. So everything indicates...
Also the teeth you have written.
Exactly. Are blunt. Our teeth are blunt. So the thing is, according to many, we are basically plant-eating animals. And so we should remember that, and we should stick to that go for plant-based foods. And India, I mean, may have discovered sugar, and we did have diabetes. Even in Kautilya's Arthashastra, Kautilya, Chanakya, he's advising the kings that give your enemy diabetes. That way, because diabetes cannot be cured, and you'll make sure that he's dead. So like that. But, the thing is, in those days, Indians consumed some rice, but a lot of millets, a lot of grains, a lot of fruits, a lot of seeds, nuts. That's what doctors are saying, come back to those. Let's choose those over man-made stuff, especially processed food, pizza. These are like unthinkably bad. But even sugar itself is man-made.
Yes. There is an interesting paragraph about Buddha's mindfulness, eating, the mindful eating in tune with our body, mind, and the food in front of us, eating with a lot of concentration rather than the starving and dieting. So what is mindful eating according to you? How do you infer from that?
Mindfulness
The
has become
intermittent
a
fasting
huge,
these days, they say.
it's a huge diet movement now where you're supposed to eat everything mindfully. Mindfully means not only looking at your food, but within. I mean, the fact that we sit in front of television and we eat, that is exactly what mindful eating wouldn't want you to do. So, because Buddha was into Vipassana meditation, where you're supposed to look inside, and mindfulness, mindful eating came as a part of this tradition, where you look at yourself, understand what your body needs, eat accordingly, focus on the food. So, that type of eating habit actually promotes healthy eating. Because if you're thinking so much about food, you're not going to put one unhealthy item in your mouth. You cannot. You will think twice about a biscuit. Oh, no, I can't have it. It's only when we don't think about food too much and we take recourse to convenient food, comfort food, processed food, packaged food, sugar, sweetened drinks, only when we don't think enough. So my whole point was to write for people like me who need to think about what they eat, and the mindfulness comes if you have the time and the wherewithal to do it. To meditate, they bring down inflammation. Sugar causes a lot of inflammation. Stress,
Yes.
cortisol
Levels
rise up, and cortisol rises your blood sugar. So all sorts of, I mean, our body is very finely tuned, and they are, sugar messes with every system in the body.
So, the big question is, what should we do with sugar?
I have some takeaway messages. Can I share
please.
those?
If the readers can
jotted those
get
down
some,
yesterday.
yes, please tell us.
Right.
So get some take-home messages.
One was, as I discussed, eat with nature. Don't go for white sugar, white rice, white bread,
Correct.
anything which is refined or polished, which is man-made, processed, convenient, comfort, packaged. Please try to cut those out of your life. I know it's very difficult, especially for lazy people like me and who are not good cooks, but still it's worth the effort.
Right.
Secondly, accept your old brain. Tell yourself that, okay, my brain is going to push me. If I'm walking down Chandni Chowk in Delhi or Calcutta, my city is absolutely obsessed with food. And the smell and the sound and, people eating, the visual delight, all that. Please tell yourself repeatedly that my brain is old. It's now going to flood me with happiness. So let me avoid those places. Maybe this much we can do to some extent. 3, think about an organ we never think about. We think about our heart, our lungs, our stomach, our whatever, kidneys. We never think about our pancreas. Most people don't even know where the pancreas is. So pancreas produces 2 hormones, the insulin and the glucagon, which balance each other and keep our blood sugar levels balanced. But pancreas is a bit of a rock star, it's very temperamental, and if you start eating too much, overeating, eating in the middle of the night, regularly, do it continuously, and your pancreas will just give up, and the insulin glucagon balance will go. You'll end up getting very bad chronic diseases like diabetes and heart and obesity. So take care of your pancreas. 4, like COVID, sugar gives you inflammation. So this word we all know now.
Yeah, you just mentioned also.
Yes.
Yeah.
And inflammation means your body, sugar when it doesn't listen to pancreas in the insulin and glucagon dictates, it starts burning like a slow burn, a coal fire burning in your body. Every cell starts burning like that, sort of a chronic, slow burning. That is terrible for you. That is the beginning of all the disease processes, from diabetes to heart disease to cancer to obesity to dementia, Alzheimer's, name it, any modern disease ultimately, even COVID. People with diabetes were the worst affected. So beware of inflammation. And it's not difficult because meditation, yoga, these are even chanting, humming, laughing, singing. These are pathways that make the vagus nerve that comes from the brain up to here, the longest nerve, and it informs the brain. It's like a spy of the brain. Brain gets information about your body through the vagus nerve and many other. So the vagus nerve is happy through these pathways of yoga, meditation, mindful eating, all these things. So maybe sing, even if you're not a green space, running. All these said to help combat inflammation. I was sent to Philippines by India Today once. They have a retreat inside, very close to a volcano, and they practice some very old, ancient Philippine, like our Ayurveda. They do manipulation on the body. And there they studied my blood picture. They take blood picture, a drop of blood, and they take the blood picture. So it was really scary. I mean, despite the sort of life I led at that time, my cells seemed to move about fairly independently. And then they showed me a lot of other reports where people had their cells, clumped together. Excessive stress, the cells were not even round, blood cells. Excessive sugar, excessive blah, blah. I was supposed to write a report on this, which I did. But it was a great experience, and that entire retreat is devoted to greenery, to meditation, to being with nature, and singing in open air, alone. All the houses are made of glass, so you can see the...
So pleasing the vagus nerve.
Absolutely, pleasing the vagus nerve.
How much time do we have? The time is over. Okay.
All right.
So the audience round is... okay.
I'm nearly through. So one is don't stay away from the Western modern diet, which is high sugar, high fat, which will definitely give you all the bad diseases. Don't overeat, because you have the hormone called leptin, which tells you when you're full. And when you overeat, that hormone goes for a toss, as you were telling me. If you don't want to age fast, don't have sugar, because your chromosomal, the caps at the tips of your chromosome called telomeres, they get short. Meaning you're aging faster. Sugar does that to your chromosomes. And then dig into your own family history. That's what I would suggest you do with, if you think about your grandmother, her mother, look at your study of family history, you'll find that they had different food items. They had much more puffed rice, flattened rice, much more millets. Not so much of white rice was unknown to those generations. So go for those. And finally, I would say, follow the Buddha's great middle path, that is moderation. Embrace plants as a source of protein. Cut down on red meat and sugar by half. Double intake of healthy foods, fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts. So that's my takeaway for now.
That's nice. That was really nice. I think we can have some questions. It's a question answer time.
Hello.
Sugars which we had for last 20 years suppose
Huh.
on our body, can it be undone?
It's very difficult, So, I mean, this entire invasion started from the early 20th century. In 1907, one British doctor, R.A. Charles, he found out that high diabetes among affluent Indians. So the nationalists, Swadeshi movement during that time, they tried to boycott sugar. But mill-made sugar is cheaper and it's mass-produced. So they couldn't stop it. And it became a household thing. So that was the first industrialization thing. Then we had Green Revolution, which was a good thing for India in the sense that, India became self-sufficient, but Green Revolution seeds were biologically engineered. We put so much chemicals into as fertilizers, as pesticides, and it destroyed our heritage seeds that had existed in this country and the variety. And that used to protect the soil. That was gone with Green Revolution. So sustainable farming had gone. That is what happened to Vidarbha farmers. They pushed those farmers to.
What I wanted to ask was the shortening of telomeres which you said,
Huh.
can it be undone after stopping sugars? And after how many years?
No, no, see, the thing is, I don't think they can be undone, but they don't get worse. They stop at that point. Whatever it is, if it is shortened, they stop at that point. If you stop having sugar. That's all that I can tell you. I think you should now go. Yeah, are you a doctor? Yeah. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Ma'am. I have two things to state. First is, I'm sorry I came a little late, so I don't have exact data. Neither have I read your book. But is the title Sugar the Silent Killer or Glucose the Silent Killer? Because you mentioned body's response to certain situations where this refined sugar is not coming in picture. When your cortisol levels go up, your glucose rises. That glucose cannot be differentiated from whether it is come from the refined sugar or from a sweet.
No.
Or
I understand.
so can the title be changed to Glucose the Silent Killer?
No. See, glucose is a medical term. And I'm not writing for medical people. I mean, they know enough. But, sugar, this is what we call glucose. Blood sugar. Why do we say blood sugar? We don't say blood glucose. Do we?
write blood glucose. When I sign a report, I write blood glucose.
Huh. Are you a doctor?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So for normal people, it is blood sugar. So I think, this title was suggested by the publisher. I accepted it. And the title, this is not a medical book. This is entirely a cultural book on how we eat now and what we can do. I come from the east of this country, so I can talk about, I joined the dots for my part of the country. So all of you, each of you can do it for your own tradition, where you come from, what are the foods that you had and how it has changed in your case, and why do you have so much sugar on your platter now, which your grandfather didn't. So I think sugar is fine. I mean, that's my opinion. It's more accessible to people. If I wrote Glucose the Silent Killer, I don't think I wouldn't buy a book like that.
People do buy. See, then we must understand this fact that sugar is important. I do not represent the sugar lobby. I do not represent, I own no shares in a sugar manufacturing company, but...
You are absolutely right.
But I think there's a place for moderation, period.
Absolutely.
It's for moderation. Beauty at times kills, but beauty at times brings you happiness.
That's also true. But, doctor, the thing is, you wouldn't know how difficult it is for us to make choices, food choices, for normal people.
You can ask without mic also. Yeah, please.
Do you,
Huh.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Rajesh Manotkar, orthopedic surgeon. Most of them are doctors here. Here, madam.
oh, hello.
Hello. So, not a question, just a comment. I believe that, what I believe is that you can eat or drink whatever you want. Diabetes, the famous quote from WhatsApp, the diabetes doesn't run in family. The problem is that nobody runs in family.
Nobody runs in the family.
So,
But this is a doctor joke, I'm sure.
you can say that. You can say that. And one example I want to quote is that the importance of exercise. You can eat whatever you want. Mr. Akash Singh Rathod, who is one of the invited faculty for this event, he is a triathlete. He is preparing for a triathlon. Today morning he went for a running, and he came to know that there is some marathon going on in Nagpur. Madam, he ran 21 kilometers today morning. Mr. Akash Singh Rathod, I couldn't believe, he has put on the Twitter. I couldn't believe it. And
The one who was there in the inauguration.
yeah. And he is having 2 sessions now. Next session and 1 session after.
I'm
Great.
very impressed.
So,
But
exercise,
then,
I think exercise
nobody
plays a very
runs
important role.
that much.
Because humans used to move much more at one time. See, I can only give you my personal example. I started doing intermittent fasting. I don't eat anything as breakfast and have from the time I'm supposed to have lunch up to 7:30 I eat. I just did it because I thought I would. It's become so popular, time restricted diet and all that. Not taking it, and I cheat often. But then I noticed when I came back from Delhi, I was 74 kgs. I became 66 without even trying. And then I became 62, which is what my weight should be at my height. So that has really helped me, the Buddhist way of eating. So,
Yes.
I mean, different people will have different...
Okay, only 2 questions.
Excuse me.
One, yeah.
May I?
yes,
Yes,
please.
sure.
So my concern is more, my query is more concerned with the diet. Okay. So according to Ayurveda, we say like we should follow the sun. When the sun is at its peak, the digestive fire is at its peak. Okay. So, but what about the people who are doing night shifts? So like, how can they manage their
Night
diet?
shifts really mess up
Yeah.
the body.
Yeah.
You know, and the lack of sleep also. I think there are enough doctors here to sort of. So why don't you?
Yeah,
Yes.
congratulations, ma'am, for your excellent book. Though I have read only part of it.
Thank you so much. I'm very proud.
Yeah, but I have heard the book from her, and I know all the details of the book. So that's very nice. And
Thank
just
you.
I wanted to ask, when you're saying the crystalline sugar is completely no for that. So do suggest some alternative, or I may ask like, how about jaggery, or what about
Honey.
using honey, or no sugar-free pellets, or all those things?
Sir, I think you doctors need to come up with the alternatives for us. Because sugar,
jaggery is natural.
jaggery and honey would have some vitamins and minerals. But apart from that, they all come down
Yeah,
to sugar in
glycemic
the glucose in the end. So, I mean, like whether I can, and those things, the substitutes, the sugar, they're really
Sweeteners.
bad for health, sweeteners. So I have substituted my mother's sugar with raisin, so which are also good for health. But maybe you guys should come together and give us some sort of a guideline on what we should do. That there's tremendous confusion, and we really don't need sugar. Dr. John Yudkin writes that all the sugar the human body requires, it can find in all the food that we get. We don't need sugar.
Perfect. We don't need to consume sugar.
But it's only we like that taste, no? How can we not do without sugar? That's the problem. Especially in India, everything is, we even bribe through sugar. So every pathway is lined with sugar and sweets, and it's a great culture of the sweets that we have. What do we do with that? I don't know. But doctors, you have to give us some sort of an alternative suggestions and not medicalize us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That
Thank you,
was
thank
a
you, thank
pleasure
you.
talking to you.
Just one more question, ma'am.
Yes.
Due paucity of time, we will have to shut it here because
Okay, no
and
problem.
the gorgeous
Just-
author will be
I'll just take-
available in the lawns.
I'll just take 2 seconds from when you're writing about salt. That's it.
Soil?
When are you writing about salt?
Oh, no, I'm writing about milk after this. That's what Rupa
I have
has
other
asked me
question.
to-
Maybe I'll catch you later.
So much due to the Nagpur readers, fantastic readers, the gorgeous author will be available in the lawns for you to interact with her. You can buy her book, get it signed by her. Sugar is as complex as we are. The author says, we have a Stone Age brain and live in a space age with a variety of sugar to entice us. People really need to think about what they eat. I now request our moderator to hand over a special token of appreciation to the author. This is a handmade painting that has been personalized for the author. We are proud to be associated with such talent at Alag Angle community. Thank you, Ms. Damayanti Datta. I now request our moderator, Doctor, to please usher the author back to the audience. Thank you, everybody.